Thank you very much for having me today. It's very brave of you. Obviously, they've introduced me. The last time I was here, I was fighting in the EU to change the law on the import of dog and cat fur from China. It was very difficult because of the relationships with China, but I managed to find a loophole and bring the so-called enemy, as we call them. People think the meat and dairy industry are our enemy, but I work very closely with them, which I'll go into in a bit. How we changed the law with the dog and cat fur was to get the fox, mink, and sable people on our side, because as a united team, we could bring about change to stop dogs and cats being skinned alive. So that law was passed in 2007. And we've gone on to achieve lots and lots of things. We created the biggest landmine clearing charity in the world when we were told we couldn't. We came up with a landmine to make manufacturers more money, because ultimately that's how change happens very quickly, with people being incentivized by finance. Luckily, the millennials and their kids are split into two sectors. You've got the aspirational lot that want to change the world, make a difference, understand plant-based, understand things, and then you've got the superficial side of like the Kardashian lot that want to put makeup on and do this. So I kind of stand in the middle and reach into both sectors to make things happen. So I would say my key role in life for myself is problem solving, insolvable things that people think are problematic, but there are simple solutions to them. And we create all those problems by putting barriers up all the time. So the simple and quickest solution for solving a number of issues, which creates a trickle effect, is that every single person goes vegan. Now, first of all, carnivore, specifically men, through all my research of doing this for 26 years, go, oh my God, vegan, especially 26 years ago. So we like to call them Flexitarians, because if you say to a man, do you think you could be a Flexitarian? He goes, yeah, I think I'm quite flexible, And so we say, let's be a Flexitarian. Let's start off as a Flexitarian. And just try a little bit of this. Do you like rice? Yeah, I like rice. Do you like vegetables? Yeah, I like vegetables. Well, you're already halfway there, because you're already eating them. Now, when we were young, and especially if you came from Newcastle, which is where I come from, we didn't have very much money, so we only had meat once a week. We had sausages on a Saturday, and we had rabbit on a Sunday. I used to envy anybody that had a little bit more money and would have a ham sandwich at school, and I would just have bread and butter. If I was lucky, maybe mainly margarine. But now I'm really happy that I hadn't put all of that excess meat and dairy into my system. Now, I was a normal 25-year-old, so to speak. I'd worked in the war in the former Yugoslavia, sorting out the clearing of landmines. I was coming back to advise the Shadow Defense Secretary, Dr. David Clark at the time, crossed the street, and obviously had my accident in the hospital, on my back for 4 months, crushed pelvis, punctured lung, split head. And my girlfriend ran in and she said, you got to go vegan. And I said, what on earth is vegan, Schmegan? That sounds crazy. And she said, I've cured myself of breast cancer. And I went, yeah, right, that's crazy. They kept chopping my leg off more and more. The infection was running up. And I thought, whoa, I want to keep my knee, because that's going to be really hard to dance and everything without my knee. So she shipped me off to America, shoved me full of this disgusting thing called wheatgrass, which tastes like saccharin. It was horrible. Within 2 weeks, I was healed completely. After months and months and months in the hospital, being very antibiotic resistant, having consumed tons of meat and things that were already pumped with all these things, and eventually I healed myself. I was being followed a lot, this is back in 1993, by the press, and they said, how did you do this? I wrote books about it. All that money went for mine clearance. And I then stayed raw vegan for 2 years. I don't recommend it. It's really hard. And as you get older, you have less hydrochloric acid in your system, so you can't break down all that raw fiber. So that's another story. But instead of popping Gaviscon and PPIs, you actually need more acid as a tip to break it down, which you can get from natural hydrochloric acid and digestive enzymes. So that's a tip for all of you having acid reflux right now after lunch. You just need more acid, not your alkaline, PPI, Gaviscon things. That's just like putting a lid on a volcano. You'll suffer later. So I started looking into food science and how can I have my burger, how can I have my hot dog and my pizza, how can I bring up my kid who's now been vegan 15 years and never been ill to actually have and feel part of society. So I thought, let's do replication food. Back then you had vegetarian. Vegetarian is completely different to vegan, so please don't confuse the two. One has eggs, dairy, butter, milk, and all the things that are not vegan, and the other is clean. And there's different forms of processing for making hot dogs and pizzas and things. So back 25 years ago, the supermarkets would not pay for anything else other than soy. And soy being subsidized for the farmers to feed the cattle was a cheap way of gaining something. It was also the only thing that was a complete amino acid. So that became the big thing. We did soy, but I also had 130 other recipes waiting for this moment of coconut, allergen-free base, pea protein base, algal oils. I have the highest level algal oil in the world of DHA and EPA for any scientists out there, docosahexaenoic acid and icosapentaenoic acid that was blocked from a lot of countries because it was competitive with pharmaceuticals and it wasn't going to make money. I just wanted people to have it. And the reason I got involved with algal oils initially was 10% of people who have plant-based sources of protein cannot do a conversion from a short-chain fatty acid to a long-chain fatty acid, whereas the algal oil at the right levels of high DHA already has that. Now, a lot of people believe omega-3 comes from fish. It doesn't. It comes from the algae the fish eat, but there are billions of algae, high levels like ours, low levels that get shoved with binders into things in low class health food stores. So why are we making capsules via a fish? Doesn't make any sense. If you want to sit down and eat a nice piece of fish, that's a different discussion. But the amount of marine eco-devastation that's going on unnecessarily because we're so stupid that we get stuff to feed farm fish, to squeeze stuff out of them, to put into capsules, it's just insane. You might as well just take the algae, make it into a capsule, and then minimize the pressure on the marine ecosystem, and then have the debate about the fish. But just to cover it, I created a vegan fish, which was like a fish fillet that McDonald's used to do. It's now one of the biggest selling vegan products in the pubs around Britain. Comes with nice mushy peas and some sweet potato fries. So everybody says, and a lot of you will be thinking, well, why do vegans want to eat burgers and hot dogs and pizzas? Because we love them. They taste fantastic. It's only a tiny percentage of vegans that eat whole food, perfect food. So I don't do it 7 days a week. It's my treat on the weekend. And I want to eat something that's good. And so a lot of the products out there taste like cardboard. So that's why people don't want to go vegan. So I made sure we made things that were replicated like for like. We've been doing it for 25 years. America think they've just found it with Impossible Burger and Beyond Meat. There are old recipes from forever ago. There's nothing new about them whatsoever. There is, as far as the growing in the cells of the lab meat, which is completely different, which should be regulated for at least 20 years, because any cells that you mess about with from an animal, you don't know what effect they're going to have on your body, on your digestive system, or anything. But right now, for a short-term solution to aim to the production of algal oils, which is going to deplete CO2 for every 1.5 tons that you grow, you're becoming carbon neutral. Because ultimately, long-term, if we keep procreating at this rate, and especially in China, who I'm having a lot of discussions with on how they can reverse their fast food epidemic, because they used to be the healthiest with Japan until we, the Western world, went in there and destroyed them in that sense and put all the fast food in there. So they now want to go back, but their young, hip kids think fast food is cool, and the Buddhist old-style healthy food is not. So we're trying to bring that style food into the alternate products, chorizo, pizzas, beef, everything. So I'm going to just press a couple of slides, see what comes up. Omega-3. So we're now making capsules from algal oils, high 421 milligrams of DHA, solventless, completely pure. The next stage I want to do is actually make it into I think I've gone, yeah, make it into green capsules, because the world is ready for green capsules. It's not ready for a green burger quite yet, but it's ready for green capsules. So we can then eliminate the need for omega-3 capsules. They're not necessary, and we can move on. From this, we get a biomass for energy, and it's better for health. And we can make chlorella, spirulina, all the things that you make that are good proteins. So the future is algal oil. How does that help a farmer? It can be additionally put into the products of soy, which is the basis for the supermarkets that won't pay the amounts. But ultimately, then in coconut, which we do for Bird's Eye Pizza, vegan pizzas now that have come out, Morrison's free-from cheeses, we do all the things for them. And we're helping the meat and dairy industry a lot as well by enabling them to keep their business going with the farmers, by showing them how they can use their land to grow oats, to grow pea protein, or Erbsen in Germany, where we've been doing it. So the fastest thing any of you can do as individuals is start to reduce your meat and dairy consumption because of all these illnesses, because of all the science, because of all the climate change that I wrote about 25 years ago and everyone said was crazy. If you please listen to me now and go vegan wherever you can, even if it means your weak area is a piece of camembert, keep that as your treat if you have to. And then when you melt a cheese on cauliflower cheese or on a fondue, do a vegan cheese, because it tastes exactly the same, especially if it's a V-Bites one. What we need, when Jeremy was talking later about the private sector investing more in farming, my dream goal is, at the moment, the reason I got involved with manufacturing was because I knew I had to control the sustainability and the traceability of where the products were coming from. So because we've got this Brexit nightmare going on, that the men dumped on Theresa, that's what happened basically, and she's got to clean it all up, even though it's not what she wanted in the first place, which is bloody typical. It's like cleaning up the crap on the floor that, you know, somebody's left behind. Ultimately, we might be in a situation where we become a contained island again, where we're having to manufacture only for our country, which is totally possible if we stay plant-based with these kind of systems. We have 2 big factories at the moment that make this algal oil and make all the different products. As soon as Brexit was announced, then everybody ran off, because we don't have strong unions in Britain anymore. So people like Walker's Pepsi-Cola had to leave, Coty, ex-Procter & Gamble left, and I managed to pick up all these factories and invest everything I had into them to bring employment back to Britain, to create this plant-based valley. So the plan is that we're going to grow in the fermentation vat. You saw the fish there. This is the vegan pizza cheese, which I developed for a friend of mine's son who had a heart transplant when he was born, half his digestive system removed, and this cheese is the only thing he can digest. So it's giving him his proteins and his fat levels and everything, because he needs more growth. We were the original people that did all the vegan meat burgers that you read about now. We just didn't market them because the world wasn't ready for them. So V-Bites, previously Redwood, were the original. So we do alginate skins on our sausages, we do mince, we do meatballs, we do burgers, and the demand is going through the roof. But ultimately, what we need to agree is margins. It is unfair that the supermarkets make their 60, 70, 80, 90, 100%, the manufacturers get squeezed, and then ultimately the farmers get squeezed right down when they're giving us their grains and their wheats and everything that they're doing. So if there's some regulation about what a margin can be as a minimal, and especially when it comes to vulnerable countries far abroad that don't understand business, if there is proper regulation in place, you see the burgers look good, don't they? If you hadn't eaten, you'd be drooling over them now. And so what we need to do is set regulation. This is makeup. Because we live in a superficial world, and the Kardashians are 1.6 billion on their makeup, claiming it's vegan. Sadly, it's not. So we thought, great, we'll make a vegan makeup range that they can actually use. So when we went to the UAE, I was doing a speech at the World Forum over in Dubai, and the Muslims and Jews, which I've got lots of friends in, were shocked to find out that they actually have pig in their makeup, which, forget about it being vegan, it's against their beliefs. So every single thing where there's a problem, we've created a solution. So we do ethical footwear, vegan shoes, clothes, makeup, everything. And it all comes from plants. So where the farmer is doing dairy and other things, we can make things from a multitude of plants. If we only relied on quinoa, there'd be a shortage, or coconut, there'd be a shortage. But ultimately, we rely on moringa, all sorts of products. So if farmers can be trained and the subsidies that they need can be used to give them that breathing space that they talked about earlier, to get the investment back rather than the short-term quick buck, that's what's going to change climate change. That's what's going to change global warming. So you start with the farmer and the consumer, and you put pressure on the very wealthy corporates and the supermarkets to be responsible and to actually bring about great change. I think that's my 15 minutes up, is it, before I get kicked off? Sorry, that was 10 years ago someone sent me that, where I was standing outside saying we'd be exactly where we are now. So please, let's not be here in another 10 years having the same conversation without any solutions, when all the solutions we gave you 25 years ago. Thank you.
Thank you, Heather. Thank you, Heather. Take a seat. I have a feeling there will be questions. Many questions. Have a seat right here. I am fascinated by how you rank different diets. So at the top would be a vegan diet.
Yeah.
Then what's underneath a vegan diet that's in order of you thinking it's the healthiest and best for the planet?
Well, there are two different things, because obviously vegetarian, people come up to me and they say, I'm vegetarian. And I say, but that's not good.
Are they proud when they say that to you?
Yeah, because they don't understand that actually what happens is when you're, and that's why you have to educate yourself on when you go vegan, because ultimately when you try all these products, you ultimately will, and most of your kids are going to go that way, is that you need to understand about reducing, and the only two supplements you need are B12 and algal oils. The rest, if you've got a perfect diet, is absolutely fine, whereas carnivores need lots of supplements. So vegetarians, when they give up fish and meat, they increase their dairy consumption, and that's when they get problems and illnesses.
So let's do the ranking then, because I thought, oh, vegan, vegetarian, but you didn't even put vegetarian as number 2. So vegan's at the top for you.
No, I would say as far as health-wise, not for the marine ecosystem, but as far as health-wise, you would go vegan, pescatarian, vegetarian, carnivore, in that order of health and devastation on the planet. Because if I said to you, if you said to me, right, Heather, you've got a week to live, and you're a cow, which people often do, then I would basically say, do you want to be a beef cow or a dairy cow? I'd want to be a beef cow. If I had to be one or the other, because a beef cow, you get fattened up and then shot. Whereas a dairy cow, in the intensively farmed dairy world, which is the majority of the world, not the wandering around the grass cow, then you're, pumped with antibiotics and impregnated, and then your babies are taken away and you pine, and then eventually you die. So I'd rather be a meat cow. So for me, dairy consumption and vegetarianism is the worst as far as I'm concerned.
Question from online. Is the world ready now for what you were talking about?
Yeah. So the world is ready now, and I'll tell you why the world is ready now. Because money, huge sales. So I worked with a number of companies many years ago. One of them just sold for 320 million, a vegan cheese company that I was doing a demonstration at the Anaheim Expo West, and I thought, let's go and see what America's like, where it's at. 10 years ago, 2009. And 3,000 zombie vegans came out of nowhere, and I was like, oh my God, it's really ready, but we're not ready to scale up. And I like to do things properly, and if you're not scaled, you're just going to let the consumer down and the supermarkets, and they're not going to work with you anymore. So I thought, right, we'll come back to America in 10 years. We've got the whole of Europe and Australia to finish off. And two guys walked by, and they went, excuse my French here, they went, we always blame the French, don't we? Oh shit, that cheese is better than ours. And I looked and I said, cheese or vegan cheese? And they said, vegan cheese. So I said, oh, don't worry, we're not coming for 10 years. Took them over in the corner and saw them on a table, and they were doing this cheese, which is dated now, but at the time was quite innovative, but not as good as ours. But it was good for America because they had nothing. And that was Daya cheese. So that sold for 320 million. That's when things started to flash up because the corporates went, hang on a second, these are big figures. And then Quorn sold for 300 and something million 5-6 years ago to Exponent in London. And then put in 7 million injection and sold for 550 million. Quorn were 100% vegetarian. They now try and copy our products all the time, everything they do. They try and do it.
How do they do that? Is it like espionage and they eat it and then they work out what's in it? How
if they did it well, I wouldn't mind. It's great, but they don't. And then because it's such a big brand, everybody eats it and goes, ugh. But it's growing because people don't understand the difference between vegetarianism and veganism. And then the final one was Field Roast, one vegan sausage, which actually is really good, was sold for 120 million. Then I get phone calls from people like Smithfield and Maple Leaf, big meat industries, asking for my advice on what to do, different cheese companies. And some of them are smart and come to us, and we make the products for them. Some of them spend 5 years and millions replicating them, and then come to us after wasting all the money and realize they can't do it. And then we make it for them. So there is a lot of waste going on. So what my plan is, especially with Brexit and my lack of love for shipping, because I'm an environmentalist, is we want to license the rights to each country to be able to manufacture these environmental, ethical products in plant-based only facilities, because we are the only huge plant-based facility of 4 factories in the world. Quorn has only got 5,000 square feet, apparently, for their vegan section. We have 600,000 square feet. And so there's no cross-contamination, no risk of illness, no risk of deaths. And supermarkets are going to start insisting on plant-based only facilities, no cross-contamination.
Put the lights up, please. I want to see how many vegans there are in the room. Would you mind standing up if you're a vegan? Right.
Can you now stand up if you think you care about climate change?
Ooh.
Then you have to go vegan. Because
congratulations, everybody. Okay. There's a question there already. Wait till a microphone gets to you, and it will. Please do make it a question. Say who you are and what is your question. All right.
Hello, my name is Felipe. I'm the founder from Renature Foundation. I really admire what you're saying, and I'm very inspired by your talk. But I would be a bit cautious on how we make these statements. I'm vegetarian since I was born. I never ate meat in my life. Now I'm vegan. But if you're an environmentalist, you should also think about actually that veganism is still relying on annual crops, while there's a lot of perennial crops, which is having a much more ecosystemic beneficial so that we can start changing our diets towards. So there's a lot of more effective ways for having more beneficial diets for the ecosystem, for an environmental perspective. So I think it's a matter of understanding each one position in it. So I think there's a lot of fight between vegetarians and vegans, and I think it's not a matter of who is better than who, but it's a matter of understanding and introducing solutions so that they can move towards this perennial diets, which is much more effective than vegan itself.
Absolutely, which is why we have 130 products with every kind of herb, plant, and everything that there possibly is. So the weakest area for vegetarians that we work with all the time to move them away from is not the meat side, it's the dairy side. So we've done it by introducing plant milks into Starbucks and all the many years ago, and they've gone from soy to coconut to rice to almond, you'll see in all of those. We now have one of the best vegan butters. I was last week teaching Italian Michelin star chefs how to make vegan soufflés without the use of egg and butter. And that's my whole point, is we have all the solutions now. So everything that a vegetarian craves and needs and just I can't give up my cheese. We've done it all with a variety of different plants, with a variety of different levels, depending on which supermarket it is. If it's Whole Foods, they'll pay a premium price. If it's one other company I won't mention, they really will not, they'll squeeze it so much the farmer won't make anything. So we have all those solutions. It's not that I'm putting vegetarians down. She just asked me a specific question of health. And it is unhealthy if you are a heavy cheese, egg, and butter consumer. It's scientifically proven. You know, I worked with Professor Colin Campbell of the China study for many years. I funded him and his son to get out of a situation that the dairy industry were putting pressure on him for. So I've been in this a long, long time. I've seen it all. And I was one of those campaigners like, no, you have to. I was an idealist 25 years ago. Now I'm a realist. And the realism is that you have to create great business to actually have the trickle effect down so that the farmer is growing plant-based and making money from it, which is not affecting the huge climate change. And that is imminent and has to happen as soon as possible. And those subsidies have to go into assisting them to give them that chance on the arable land to learn what can be grown, because it was all there before we came and destroyed it as humans, what can be grown for survival. And the more it's local community and the more people are actually living off, you know, living off the land, that's the dream. And we are going backwards.
Heather.
You know, we do milk in glass bottles.
Heather.
We don't do Tetra Paks.
I'm listening to you really carefully. I've been listening to you really carefully for the last 20, 25 minutes. You say we a lot. Are you talking about your company? Is your company out there ahead of everybody else and only you can do it?
We, as in
You're mentioning
like-minded people.
Other companies, but they're not as good as your company.
Well, no,
That's
Corn's
in your words.
vegetarian,
Yeah.
and they're trying to do what they, if they got off, we offered to private label for them because they use a microprotein that's genetically modified and ultimately not the best for the digestive system. Hopefully, they will eventually move to something.
So you just did it
Is
again there.
So
So
I
it's-
say,
it feels like only you can do this.
no, it's not. There's
You
brilliant.
You can't change diets if only one company.
No. Okay,
Yeah.
so that's a great segue into what we're doing. So V-Bites Ventures was a venture company I set up to help small startups not be taken over by big corporates. So because we can manufacture, distribute, and sell for them around the world, and then hopefully license the rights for their products, our products, to be made in the country so it's local, then those brands, we have 8 at the moment. We have One Planet Pizza, we have vegan milks in glass bottles, we have vegan protein powders. That's all their companies, and I take an investment to help them scale up on a massive basis. So we are trying to address and help everybody, but it's no good if the products aren't brilliant. You're not going to go vegan if you're eating something you don't like. So I'm just trying to offer free R&D help to companies and offer algal oils and offer all the solutions. So all companies, like the meat and dairy companies we work with, they're the ones that are going to make the huge change because they ultimately have the biggest manufacturing facilities within their countries. And when they see there's money to be made, as they have, that's when they will make more vegan cheese. But they need to slowly move over.
Let's do a speed round. So
Yeah.
fast answers to fast questions. They've all come from online. All right, for Irish farmers, what crops grow in our climate, i.e. in Ireland, that go into vegan? That's from Lawrence Doyle. He's an Irish farmer. Thanks, Lawrence.
Oats.
Okay, good. Fast answer, love that. You talked about a lot of meat substitutes. In many societies, there is an important cultural value of animals. How do you substitute this? That came from Paul Ravensbergen.
Education and replacement.
Instead of culture?
Well, it was a culture to shove children up chimneys and put ethnic people on the back of a bus. That was a culture. It's not anymore.
Where has this changed? Give us an example.
Where's what changed?
The culture of not eating meat and them turning into a vegan. Where have you seen that happen? You can say, oh, it's happened here. Is it in the UK? Is the UK
Germany was the biggest until recently. Now Britain is the most forward. Scandinavia is huge. In America, we got a New York Coalition for School Foods to put a vegan option in every school. It's about consumer choice.
So culture can be changed and challenged and people can...
If it's affecting what they're doing. But the thing is, when it's culture in small societies, they're not creating the climate change that the fast food and the huge industries are.
Oh, this is a good one. Again, speed round. There is now a suggestion in Brussels to ban the word burger for vegan food as it creates consumer confusion. Thoughts?
Well, we don't use the word burger without saying meat style or free from or cheese free. We own the word Cheesely, and if they pull out that word, they'd have to compensate the brand for 25 years' work. So that's just a fear, and that's starting to go away. It's growing in some countries because they haven't moved, but in countries that are seeing great rewards from plant-based products, as meat and dairy companies are making and getting people to make their own, they're not so afraid of it. So it just says cheese-free or free from dairy or meat-free.
In my unscientific survey, about 5 people stood up who were vegan. You have an entire auditorium to change their thoughts about diet. How do you do that?
Well, basically, we set up cafes and restaurants. We didn't say that they were vegan. People would wander in. They'd eat a big Elvis burger. Some would have a salad, and on the end of it, they would say, thanks for helping the planet, your health, and the environment. And they'd come up and say, well, I've just had a burger. That's not helping. And I went, well, it wasn't a real burger. It was made of pea protein. And they went, no, it wasn't. It was a real burger. So we're having this debate. So it's a matter of just giving people the things they love that taste the same, feel the same, look the same. The metabolism changes, the taste buds change. And like we did in the Bronx, we put $1 million worth of plant-based food right in the center of the Bronx. They went for $1 a day. That's all they got to eat. So we set up gardens on the top of all the rooftops. And they weren't interested in the vegetables. So I said, let's just do a big barbecue, and we'll replicate fast food. And they ate it like crazy. None of the kids knew. We took blood prick tests. Obesity went down. Type 2 diabetes gone in 3 months. Type 1 down to 2 insulin injections a day. Reduction of asthma, eczema, every illness. So the main thing is this, on a final thing that I know you're going to kick me off now, is basically, when you go plant-based, you affect not only the environment, but your health, the mental side of things, the prevention of diseases, the input to society because you're not sick, you're not claiming benefits, you're not doing this, you're not doing that. So the trickle effect is huge, and the domino effect will ricochet throughout the world. So it's not just about compartmentalizing, oh, it's vegan, it's this. It's what does that mean? And it is a waterfall of good. And unless you open your minds to understand it, it's not going to change. But ultimately, unless the consumer has choice of great products, it's never going to change.
What's the nicest thing a dairy farmer has ever said to you?
Thanks for making my farm into a profitable farm and converting to plant-based.
What's the most challenging thing a dairy farmer has ever said to you?
Get the hell off my farm.
And on that note, Heather Mills, thank you so much.
Thank you.